Blood and disembodied alien limbs littered the Gamelon ship's armory as Private Donald Robinson beat the last survivor into submission with his bare human hands. Just a month ago, no one expected Earth's primitive hominids could humiliate the technologically superior Gamelon Empire. But here Robinson was, fresh out of Space Marine boot camp, teaching this alien the painful lesson of underestimating human determination and brutality. Robinson shipped out on the carrier UES Invictus to join Earth's desperate stand against Gamelon aggression. The ruthless alien Emperor Varys attacked and massacred the defenseless population of humanity's fledgling colony, New Eden, without warning or provocation. Earth cobbled together a ragtag defense fleet to retake the colony before the Gamelons could target humanity's homeworld itself. Admiral Jameson pulled no punches. In a rousing final briefing, he looked each Space Marine in the eyes and laid out the stakes. The survival of the human species rested on their shoulders. They would fight with honor, valor, and every last ounce of strength and courage to push back the alien invaders. Failure meant the extinction of mankind. The Earth Defense Fleet dropped out of null space, the twisted rainbow of faster-than-light travel snapping back into the inky blackness of real space. But instead of the lush garden world of New Eden, Donald saw only ruins and devastation on the view screen. The once vibrant colony was now a lifeless husk, its atmosphere choked with ash and debris. And looming in orbit was the waiting Gamelon battle fleet, already turning to face the human ships with predatory intent. Alarms blared on the bridge of the Invictus as Admiral Jameson barked orders to assume attack formation. The Gamelon ships struck first, their hulls shimmering with crackling energy as they unleashed a storm of plasma torpedoes and searing laser beams. The human fleet scattered, point defense turrets swiveling to shoot down incoming fire. Explosions lit up the void as ships on both sides took hits. "All hands battle stations. Marines prepare for boarding action." Captain Singh's voice boomed over the intercom. In the armory, Donald grabbed extra power cells for his plasma rifle and sheathed a humming vibroblade at his side. His skin tingled with adrenaline and trepidation. This was what all his training had built towards. The Invictus shuddered as it plowed through the enemy barrage, its reinforced hull absorbing the brutal punishment. Donald could feel the deck quaking beneath his combat boots as he lined up with his fellow Marines at the boarding pod tubes. Sweat dripped beneath his helmet. "Our target is the Gamelon battleship Alacor," Sergeant Hawkins briefed them. "We get in, wreck the reactor core, and bug out. You get swarmed, you go down fighting, and take as many of those alien bastards with you as you can. Ura?" "Ura!" Donald shouted with his squad as they piled into the boarding pod. The armored hatch sealed with a hiss, and the pod rocketed away from the Invictus towards the looming bulk of the enemy battleship. Donald gripped his rifle tightly, watching the Alacor grow larger in the viewport. The collision as they punched through the ship's hull rattled Donald's teeth. The hatch blew open, and the Marines came out shooting, storming into the first chamber. Gamelon soldiers were already firing, green bolts of energy sizzling past Donald's head. He dove for cover behind a bulkhead and started laying down suppressing fire. The air stank of ozone and scorched metal as the Marines pushed ahead. A plasma bolt clipped Donald's shoulder pauldron, flash melting the armor. He snarled and put 2 shots through the faceplate of the Gamelon trooper who'd hit him. "Frag out!" Corporal Vance shouted. A clump of aliens vanished in a cloud of shrapnel and smoke. The Marines leapfrogged forward, shooting and throwing grenades. Donald vaulted a barricade and buried his vibroblade to the hilt in a Gamelon's neck, green blood spraying. Automated defense turrets dropped down from the ceiling and opened up on the humans. Private Guzman disappeared in the storm of plasma fire. "Take those turrets out," Sergeant Hawkins ordered. Donald popped up and drilled the nearest one with plasma bolts until it exploded. Alarms shrieked as they battled through the ship, leaving a trail of mangled corpses and scorch marks. The plan of the vessel was similar to human designs, letting them navigate towards engineering. But the Gamelons fought hard for every bulkhead and corridor. As they neared the bridge, a hulking Gamelon in ornate armor lunged out, energy sword flashing. The guard commander, Donald realized, as the alien cut down 2 Marines in seconds. Donald opened fire, but the Gamilon shrugged off the hits and barreled into him, knocking the rifle away. Donald rolled and drew his vibroblade just in time to parry a slash that would have cut him in half. He kicked the Gamilon back and launched into a furious counterattack. Sparks flew as their blades clashed again and again. The guard commander was fast and strong, keeping Donald on the defensive, but the human was more agile. He ducked a decapitating swing and got inside the Gamilon's guard, slamming his helmet into its face. Bones crunched. The alien reeled and Donald pressed his advantage, stabbing his blade through a gap in the armor to pierce its heart. The Gamilon toppled with a crash. Donald stood over it, panting. The remaining bridge crew stared at him in shock and fear. Sergeant Hawkins snapped them out of it. Demo charges on the reactor. Now we are leaving. They ran back through the blasted corridors, shooting as they went, and piled into the boarding pod. The Gamilon battleship vanished in a sun-bright explosion as Donald watched from the viewport. Cheers erupted around him. They'd struck a heavy blow. The battle was turning. The Gamilons were in full retreat. But on the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Varys seethed with rage. The barbarian humans dared to defy him. They would pay. This wasn't over. "Prepare the planet Crusher," he ordered. "I will wipe their filthy colony from the face of the universe, and then their homeworld is next." Rumors of the planet Crusher spread through the Earth Defense Fleet like wildfire. Grim expressions and tense conversations filled the corridors of every ship. Marines double and triple-checked their weapons. Pilots ran endless combat simulations. Donald saw the fear in their eyes, the knowledge that all their sacrifices might be in vain against such a monstrous weapon. Admiral Jameson summoned Donald to the Invictus's command deck. The Admiral stood at the holotable, studying the Planet Crusher's schematic with a furrowed brow. "Sergeant Robinson, that stunt you pulled on the Alicorn was damn impressive. You've got brass balls, son." "Thank you, sir," Donald replied. "But with respect, I was just doing my job." "Well, your job's about to get a whole lot harder," Jameson said. "Our conventional weapons can't touch that thing. It'll crack a planet open like an egg. The only way we're going to stop it is by cutting the head off the snake. I'm authorizing an off-the-books mission to infiltrate the Gamilon homeworld and take out Emperor Varys himself, and I want you to lead it." Donald blinked, assassinating the alien emperor in his own heavily defended capital. It sounded like a suicide mission, but if it could buy Earth time, give them a fighting chance. He nodded. "I'll do it, sir. Who's on my team?" "The best of the best," Jameson replied. "Cherry-picked from every ship in the fleet. You'll have the finest tech our eggheads can cook up, too. Stealth suits, EMP grenades, the works, whatever you need to get the job done." Donald saluted. "We won't let you down, Admiral." As the strike team assembled in the armory to gear up, a priority transmission came through from Fleet Command. Donald and his squad gathered around the view screen to watch. To their shock, the face that appeared was not human, but Gamilon. The alien's features were battle-scarred, his expression hard but not hostile. "Soldiers of Earth," he began, "I am Zoran, leader of the Gamilon resistance. We have common cause. My people suffer under the cruelty of Emperor Varys just as yours do. I propose an alliance. Your team will need help to breach the Emperor's defenses. We can provide that help." Donald traded wary glances with his squadmates. It could be a trap, but they needed every advantage they could get. Cautiously he replied, "I'm listening." "Meet me on the 3rd moon of Keldor Prime," Zoran said. "We will speak more there." The transmission ended. Donald turned to his team. "Saddle up, boys. Looks like we're taking a detour." The verdant jungles of Keldor Prime's 3rd moon teemed with bioluminescent flora and fauna. Donald's team moved cautiously through the overgrowth, eyes peeled for any sign of treachery. Zoran and a contingent of Gamilon rebels in patchwork armor met them in a clearing. Up close, Donald could see the weariness and pain etched in the alien leader's face. This was a being who had endured much. "When Varys and I were young," Zoran began without preamble, We dreamed of a united Gamelon empire, a strong, proud nation. But the man I once called friend has become a monster. His conquests have brought only blood and suffering. I can abide it no longer." Donald nodded slowly. "All right, what have you got for us?" Zoran activated a holo projector, displaying a detailed schematic of the Emperor's palace. Varys has grown paranoid. The palace shields are impenetrable to bombardment, and he has a small army of fanatically loyal guards. But there is another way in. The Gamelon rebel pointed to a section of the schematic. "An ancient aqueduct here, built in more peaceful times. It will be lightly guarded. I can lead you through the old maintenance tunnels and get you inside the perimeter." "And you're sure this isn't a setup?" Donald pressed. "How do we know you won't betray us?" Zoran met his gaze unflinchingly. "My only wish is to see Varys fall and my people freed from his madness. I would gladly give my life for that cause." After a long moment, Donald extended his hand. "Okay, we're in. Let's go cut the head off the snake." The Gamelon homeworld loomed before them, a mottled brown orb wreathed in sickly green clouds. Donald's cloaked insertion ship glided through the polluted skies, sensors straining for any sign of detection. In the hold, the strike team triple-checked their weapons and stealth gear. There could be no mistakes. The fate of Earth, of the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Zoran's intel proved accurate. The aqueduct was ancient and crumbling, half-choked with dark, mossy growth. Only a handful of bored guards patrolled its perimeter. Donald's team moved like ghosts, slipping past the sentries with ease. The Gamelon's energy weapons could pierce their stealth suits, but no alarm was raised. So far, so good. The tunnels beneath the palace were dank and labyrinthine, but Zoran led them unerringly through the gloom. Donald was grudgingly impressed. The alien rebel knew his way around. But as they neared the surface, the challenges mounted. Patrols of elite guards crisscrossed the corridors, vigilant for any intrusion. Donald and his team were forced to pick their way through an ever-shifting maze of threats, hugging the shadows and holding their breath as enemies passed mere inches away. Twice they were nearly discovered, saved only by quick thinking and quicker reflexes. Sweat soaked Donald's suit, his heart hammering against his ribs. Just a little further, just a few more yards, and they'd be in the palace proper, within striking distance of the Emperor himself. At last they emerged into a vaulted chamber of jagged black stone, dimly lit by pulsing green lamps. Donald's eyes widened. They were directly beneath the palace's great hall, where Varys held court. The Emperor was close. He could feel it. "This is it," Zoran whispered, his voice tight with tension. "The throne room is just above us. Varys will be there, surrounded by his most powerful followers and fanatical guards." Donald turned to his strike team, his expression grim. "Listen up, this is going to be tight. We go in fast and hard. Zoran and his rebels will lock down the room and handle the guards. We focus on Varys, but if it comes down to it, putting a bolt through his skull is all that matters. Copy." "Copy," his Marines chorused, readying their weapons with determined faces. Donald took a deep breath, adrenaline surging through his veins. No matter what happened, the Gamelon Emperor died today. For Earth, for the fallen of New Eden, for every dream of peace and freedom. He met Zoran's eyes and nodded. "All right, let's finish this." The strike team crept through the outskirts of the Gamelon capital, their stealth suits blending them into the alien architecture. Zoran led the way, his knowledge of the city's defenses invaluable. They slipped past patrols and security checkpoints, drawing ever closer to the looming spires of the Emperor's palace. But as they reached the final approach, a phalanx of Gamelon royal guards emerged from the shadows, energy weapons leveled at the intruders. At their head stood General Krag, Varys's most brutal enforcer. The Gamelon's battle-scarred face twisted into a sneer. "Did you really think you could infiltrate the heart of the Empire undetected?" Krag growled. "Your pathetic alliance ends here." Donald stepped forward, his plasma rifle humming. "We'll see about that." Chaos erupted as the strike team and royal guards opened fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossed the courtyard, scorching stone and flesh. Donald dove into cover, his Marines fanning out beside him. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but the humans had one advantage, the element of surprise. The Gamelons hadn't expected them to make it this far. They were caught off guard, scrambling to mount a coordinated defense. Donald seized the opportunity. "CQC now!" he barked. The Marines surged forward, closing the distance with shocking speed. They crashed into the Gamelon line like a tidal wave, vibro blades flashing and plasma rifles blazing at point-blank range. The Royal Guards were elite warriors, but they were no match for human ferocity and skill at close quarters. Bones crunched and armor shattered as the strike team tore through their ranks. Donald found himself face to face with General Cragg. The Gamelon's energy sword hummed to life, casting an eerie glow over his hate-filled features. "I will take great pleasure in killing you, human," Cragg snarled, lunging forward. Donald parried the blow with his vibroblade, the impact sending shockwaves up his arm. Cragg was fast and immensely strong, his energy sword a blur of deadly light. But Donald was a veteran of countless battles, his reflexes honed to a razor's edge. He met Cragg's attacks with a flurry of his own, their blades clashing in a storm of sparks. Around them the battle raged. The Marines were pushing the Royal Guards back, but the Gamelons fought fanatically, refusing to yield. Plasma fire stitched the air and explosions shook the ground. Donald poured all his strength and skill into the duel, matching Cragg blow for blow. The Gamelon's superior technology gave him an edge, but Donald's raw physical power and determination kept him in the fight. With a roar of effort, Donald battered aside Cragg's sword and lunged inside his guard. His vibroblade carved through the Gamelon's armor like paper, burying itself in Cragg's chest. The general staggered back, his sword falling from nerveless fingers. He slumped to the ground, green blood pooling beneath him. Donald stood over his fallen foe, chest heaving. The remaining Royal Guards, seeing their leader defeated, threw down their weapons in surrender. Zoran and the Marines regrouped, tending to their wounds and checking their gear. The courtyard was a smoking ruin, littered with Gamelon dead. "The palace is just ahead," Zoran said grimly. "But Varys will know we're coming now. We must hurry." Donald nodded, reloading his plasma rifle. "Let's move." They breached the palace walls with demolition charges, storming into the ornate halls beyond. But as they pushed deeper into the labyrinthine complex, their advance slowed. Automated defenses and cunningly placed traps confronted them at every turn. Sentry turrets emerged from hidden alcoves, filling the corridors with deadly energy beams. Pressure plates triggered poison gas and hidden pitfalls. The strike team fought through each obstacle with grim determination, but the toll mounted. Marines fell, some wounded, others killed outright. Their numbers dwindled with each bloody confrontation. And then, as they neared the throne room, the true horror was unleashed. A phalanx of towering, heavily muscled Gamelons emerged from concealed doorways, genetically engineered super soldiers designed to match human strength and surpass it. They crashed into Donald's battered team like living battering rams, massive fists and crushing feet, pulverizing armor and bone. The Marines gave as good as they got, plasma rifles and vibroblades carving into engineered flesh, but it was like fighting a tide of iron. Donald found himself grappling with a snarling red-eyed brute, his arms straining as he struggled to hold back the monster's anvil-like fists. All around him, his Marines were locked in desperate hand-to-hand combat, fighting for their lives. Zoran blasted one of the super soldiers with his energy rifle, then another. The rebel leader fought like a man possessed, driven by a lifetime of hatred for Varys's twisted creations. But there were too many. The engineered Gamelons shrugged off wounds that would have killed a normal being, fighting with relentless, machine-like fury. Marines began to fall, overwhelmed by the onslaught. Donald's strength was fading, his arms burning with fatigue. The super soldier loomed over him, ready to crush him into paste. This was the end. He had failed. And then Zoran was there, throwing himself at the monster with a cry of defiance. The rebel leader grappled with the brute, buying Donald a precious instant of respite. But it was a fleeting victory. The super soldier seized Zoran with its massive hands, lifting him off the ground. Zoran screamed as the monster began to tear him apart. "Go," the rebel leader gasped out, his voice ragged with agony. "Finish this! Kill Varys!" With a sickening crunch, the super soldier ripped Zoran in half and tossed his ruined body aside. Donald roared in anguish and rage, emptying his plasma rifle into the monster until it finally collapsed, its engineered flesh smoking. The battle was over. The throne room doors loomed before them, dented and scarred by stray weapons fire. Donald and the 3 remaining Marines gathered themselves, battered and bloody but unbroken. They had made it. Varys was just ahead. The fate of Earth, of the galaxy, would be decided in the next few moments. Donald kicked open the doors, his rifle leveled, and there, on a throne of black metal and alien bones, sat Emperor Varys himself, surrounded by his elite personal guard. A crackling energy field shimmered around the Emperor, an impenetrable barrier. Varys smiled, his eyes cold and cruel. "Welcome, Terrans, to the last moments of your pathetic resistance." Donald stepped forward, his vibroblade humming in his hand. He met Emperor Varys's cold gaze with a defiant glare of his own. "I invoke the right of single combat, Varys. You and me, no weapons but our blades. Your honor demands it." The Emperor laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You dare challenge me, human? I have slain countless warriors greater than you." "Prove it," Donald snarled. "Face me without your toys and let's see what you're really made of." Varys's eyes narrowed. He knew he could not refuse without appearing weak before his guards. With a gesture, he deactivated his energy shield and stepped down from his throne, drawing a long, curved sword from his belt. "I accept your challenge, Terran. Prepare to die." They circled each other warily, blades held at the ready. Donald's heart pounded in his ears. This was it. The fate of Earth, of the galaxy, would be decided here and now. Varys moved first, his sword flashing in a blinding arc. Donald parried desperately, the impact sending shockwaves up his arm. The Emperor was fast, far faster than any opponent Donald had ever faced. They traded blows in a furious dance of death, sparks flying as their blades clashed again and again. Donald could feel his strength waning, his muscles burning with fatigue. But he fought on, pouring every ounce of his skill and determination into the battle. Around them, the throne room was silent, the watching soldiers barely daring to breathe. This was a duel of legends, a clash of titans that would be remembered for generations. Varys pressed his advantage, hammering at Donald's defenses with relentless fury. His blade seemed to be everywhere at once, a whirlwind of razor-sharp steel. Donald felt a line of fire across his chest as the Emperor's sword found its mark, slicing through his armor like paper. But even as blood soaked his chest, Donald refused to yield. He launched himself at Varys in a last desperate charge, a battle cry tearing from his throat. The Emperor's eyes widened in surprise as Donald bore down on him like a raging bull. Their blades locked together, faces inches apart as they strained against each other. Donald could feel Varys's hot breath on his skin, could see the madness swirling in the depths of his eyes. With a roar of effort, Donald twisted his blade and thrust upward, piercing the gap in Varys's armor at the neck. The Emperor staggered back, a look of shocked disbelief on his face as he clutched at the gushing wound. "Sirs," he gurgled, sinking to his knees. How could a primitive ape best the ruler of the stars? Donald stood over him, chest heaving, his blade dripping with alien blood. "You underestimated us, Varys. That was your last mistake." The Emperor laughed, a wet, choking sound. "You think you've won, human? The planet Crusher is already on its way to your pathetic homeworld. In a matter of hours, Earth will be nothing but cosmic dust." Donald's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "Did you really think I wouldn't have a backup plan? The planet Crusher was launched days ago. My death means nothing. Your species is doomed." With a final, rattling breath, Emperor Varys slumped to the floor, dead. Donald stared down at his lifeless body, numb with shock and horror. "We have to get back to the fleet," he said hoarsely. "We have to warn Earth." The remnants of the strike team gathered around him, battered and bloodied but alive. They made their way out of the palace, fighting off the last pockets of Gamilon resistance. But as they reached their extraction point, a fresh wave of soldiers poured out of the surrounding buildings, weapons blazing. Donald's team was forced to take cover, returning fire desperately. "There's too many of them," Private Jew shouted over the din of battle. "We'll never make it to the ship." Corporal Vance met Donald's eyes, a look of grim determination on his face. "Get to the ship, Sarge. We'll hold them off." "No," Donald said firmly. "I'm not leaving you behind." "You have to," Vance insisted. "You're the only one who knows about the Planet Crusher. Earth needs you. We'll buy you the time you need." One by one, the remaining Marines nodded, taking up positions to cover Donald's escape. He wanted to argue, to order them to come with him, but he knew Vance was right. The fate of humanity was more important than any of their lives. "Give 'em hell, Marines," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's been an honor serving with you." "The honor was ours, Sarge," Vance replied. "Now go and make sure those Gamilon bastards pay for what they've done." With a final anguished look at his brave comrades, Donald turned and sprinted for the waiting stealth ship. Plasma bolts sizzled past him as he ran, the searing heat of near misses scorching his skin. Behind him, he heard the defiant battle cries of his Marines, the roar of their weapons as they fought to their last breath. One by one, those sounds faded, replaced by the triumphant shouts of the Gamilon soldiers. Tears streamed down Donald's face as he hurled himself into the waiting ship. The hatch sealed behind him and the craft lifted off, racing away from the planet's surface at breakneck speed. He slumped against the bulkhead, overcome by grief and exhaustion. How many more friends would he lose before this war was over? How many more sacrifices would be demanded? Admiral Jameson's face appeared on the view screen, lined with worry. "Sergeant Robinson, what's your status? Did you eliminate the Emperor?" Donald nodded wearily. "Varys is dead, sir. But we have a bigger problem. The Planet Crusher is already on its way to Earth. We have hours at most before it arrives." Jameson's expression turned grim. "Understood, Sergeant. Get back to the fleet as soon as possible. We'll need every ship and every soldier for what comes next." As the stealth ship raced through the void, Donald stared out at the stars, his heart heavy with the weight of all they had lost and all they still stood to lose. The Gamilon Empire was in disarray, its leader dead, but the threat to Earth was far from over. The fight for humanity's survival had only just begun, and Donald knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that he would be on the front lines until the bitter end, no matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.